But Dwayne Youngblood claims that when he was around 18, 19 years old, T.D. Jakes attempted to enter into a sexual relationship with him.
In November 2024, T.D. Jakes collapsed mid-sermon, sending shockwaves through his congregation and far beyond. Within days, the story took another disturbing turn, one that pulled him into a storm of allegations, viral misinformation, and a legal battle that quickly escalated. What followed was a year filled with scrutiny and a level of public pressure few figures ever face. So what really happened to T.D. Jakes? And what is the truth behind the headlines that followed? Join us as we break what T.D. Jakes finally confirmed about all the allegations. The life that built the target. Thomas Dexter Jakes was a kid from South Charleston, West Virginia, whose life was shaped by two things simultaneously: his faith and the grief of watching his father die slowly from kidney disease when he was just a teenager. He was born on June 9, 1957, in South Charleston, and grew up in a household where both faith and working-class reality were present in equal measure. His father, Ernest Jakes, owned a small janitorial business. His mother, Odith Jakes, was a teacher. When Ernest's kidneys began to fail during Jakes's teenage years, the family's stability fractured around the edges of that illness. Jakes was still a young man when his father died, and the experience of watching a parent's slow decline while trying to hold a household together left a mark on how he understood suffering, resilience, and what it meant to help other people find their footing when the ground beneath them gave way. He started preaching at 21 years old, founding a small storefront church in Montgomery, West Virginia, with just 10 members in the congregation. The church grew slowly, and his reputation as a speaker grew with it. He worked outside jobs to support the ministry during the early years, including a role at a chemical plant, because the congregation was too small to provide enough income to live on. He was not preaching from a position of comfort or security in those years. He was preaching while simultaneously figuring out how to pay his own bills. The moment that changed everything was his 1993 Woman Thou Art Loosed sermon, which was so impactful that it became a book, a stage play, and eventually a film, generating an audience that extended far beyond any single congregation or denomination. Jakes moved his ministry to Dallas, Texas in 1996 and founded the Potter's House, which grew to become a non-denominational megachurch with more than 30,000 members and multiple locations. In 2001, Time magazine featured him on its cover with the question, "Is this man the next Billy Graham?" which is not the kind of recognition a random person generates by accident. It is the kind that comes from decades of consistent, genuinely powerful preaching that have reached people across racial, denominational, and cultural lines in ways that most religious figures never manage. He became a best-selling author, a film producer, a conference organizer, and the kind of celebrity preacher whose events fill arenas. His net worth reflects all of those activities, with estimates placing it in the range of $150 million to $250 million, built across book sales, speaking fees, film production, and the commercial operations attached to his ministry. The wealth has been the subject of its own ongoing public conversation about prosperity gospel preachers and the relationship between ministry and money, with critics and supporters taking predictably different positions on whether it represents blessing or exploitation. He married Sarita Ann Jameson in 1981, and they have 5 children together, including his daughter, Sarah Jakes Roberts, who has built her own significant ministry platform and who would become central to a major announcement Jakes made in 2025. The size of what Jakes built across 5 decades of ministry is the necessary context for understanding why 2024 arrived with such force. When you have built something that large and that visible, you also have built a target. And in late 2023, And through 2024, that target became impossible to miss. What exactly happened? The Diddy rumors and AI information machine. The first wave of the crisis that reshaped 2024 for TD Jakes was not the result of direct allegations made against him by specific individuals. It was the product of an internet ecosystem that had discovered how to generate enormous engagement by attaching famous names to the unfolding scandal surrounding Sean Combs, and that treated accuracy as an obstacle rather than a requirement. Beginning in late 2023 and accelerating through the first half of 2024, YouTube and TikTok videos began circulating claiming that Jakes had participated in sexual misconduct at parties hosted by Sean Combs, famously known as Diddy. These claims were not based on testimony from named witnesses or on court filings that included his name as a defendant. They were based on AI-generated content, deepfake videos, and the social media phenomenon of presenting speculation as fact to audiences primed by the genuine and documented scandals surrounding Diddy. Fact-checking website Snopes investigated the specific claims and reported in May 2024 that videos alleging Jakes had resigned from the Potter's house were false. Snopes described the false resignation rumor as the latest chapter in a months-old series of videos, many at least partially created with the assistance of artificial intelligence, promoting unfounded rumors about Jakes and Diddy. Multiple videos had received hundreds of thousands of views despite containing no credible evidence. The engagement those videos generated had nothing to do with their accuracy. It had to do with the name they attached their claims to and the existing appetite for information about anyone connected to the Combs scandal. The actual connection between Jakes and Diddy consisted of a professional relationship through Revolt Media and TV, a network co-founded by Diddy that had announced a sermon series hosted by Jakes in 2021 and a brief appearance at a birthday celebration for Diddy where Derek Williams, executive vice president of TD Jakes Entertainment, explained that Jakes recorded a brief celebratory birthday video and left immediately to attend other scheduled meetings. That is the documented connection, a professional relationship and a brief appearance at a birthday party. Jakes' attorneys subpoenaed Google over AI-generated content that had spread the false claims, and his communications team issued statements describing the allegations as unequivocally false and baseless. On Christmas Eve, 2023, preaching from his pulpit, Jakes addressed the situation without addressing it directly. He said he would not use this sacred day and this sacred pulpit to address a lie when he had a chance to preach a truth. He said he would stand straight up, head up, back straight, and preach. But he also said there would be a time. That time came faster and harder than anyone expected. Because while the AI-generated Diddy rumors were still circulating, a completely separate set of allegations arrived from two specific individuals who had names, specific claims, and legal representation. Let's uncover that. The Youngblood allegations and the lawsuit that followed. In October 2024, a Pennsylvania pastor named Dwayne Youngblood appeared on the YouTube talk show Larry Reed Live and made a direct, detailed, and specific allegation against TD Jakes. He claimed that Jakes had tried to groom and acted sexually inappropriately towards him in the mid-1980s, when Youngblood was approximately 18 or 19 years old, alleging an attempted kiss, suggestive overtures, and an offer by Jakes to take care of him financially for life. The allegations were not vague accusations. They described specific incidents in specific settings. Jakes and his legal team denied everything immediately and categorically. His attorneys described Youngblood's account as from start to finish patently false, and his legal team began assembling what they described as 600 pages of rebuttal evidence. In his own affidavit filed later as part of the legal proceedings, Jakes pointed out that during the period the alleged incidents were supposed to have taken place, He was a small-town preacher with no substantial following and no financial resources, barely keeping his own family out of poverty. He said the offer to take care of Youngblood financially for life was not something he could have made in that period because he had no money to support even his own household. Shortly after Youngblood's appearances on Larry Reed Live, Jakes' legal team alleged that Youngblood sent a letter demanding $6 million to resolve the matter quickly and privately. That demand is significant because it frames the allegations not simply as claims made in the public interest, but as the opening position in what Jakes characterized as an attempted extortion. Whether that characterization is accurate, or whether the demand reflected a legitimate attempt to negotiate some form of private resolution before litigation, is something the courts were positioned to evaluate. On November 24, 2024, while preaching at the Potter's House in Dallas, Jakes collapsed mid-sermon and fell silent at the end of his message. He was hospitalized. The following day, November 25th, his legal team filed a defamation lawsuit against Dwayne Youngblood in a Pennsylvania federal court. The timing of those two events, the heart attack and the lawsuit filed the day after, is one of the more striking sequences in this entire story. A man survived a massive cardiac event one day and sued his accuser the next. In February 2025, Youngblood's brother Richard, also a pastor, filed a sworn affidavit supporting the dismissal motion that Dwayne had submitted in January. Richard's affidavit alleged that Jakes had climbed into his bed during a 1986 hotel stay, pressed against him, and later scolded him for raising the matter with church elders. This second affidavit maintained the pressure on Jakes at a moment when his legal team was actively fighting the motion to dismiss. Jakes filed his own 8-page personal affidavit as part of a 562-page package of legal documents. In that document, he said that in all my years, he had never initiated a lawsuit against anyone, and that he filed this one against individuals who were supposed to be men of God, but were clearly not. The scale of the legal filing, more than 500 pages, reflects the seriousness with which his team treated the need to demonstrate the falsity of the claims in detail, rather than simply denying them at a high level. All of this was happening while Jakes was recovering from a heart attack, managing a ministry of 30,000 members, and dealing with the ongoing AI-generated social media storm that had preceded the Youngblood allegations by months. The accumulation of those pressures across a single year is genuinely significant for understanding the decisions he made and the way he eventually chose to speak publicly. So, what were the decisions he made, and how did the public react to it? The Today Show and what Jakes finally said. On March 26, 2025, T.D. Jakes sat down with Today Show host Craig Melvin for the interview that became the most significant public statement he made across the entire period of the crisis. He had maintained relative silence for months, and he explained why in the interview itself. He said he had said nothing for a long time because the more you talk, the more you feed the fire. But the fire had grown large enough that the strategy of silence was no longer working, and he had decided it was time to speak. He confirmed the heart attack. He said it was massive, which is the word that carries real medical weight. A massive heart attack is a specific clinical description of an event severe enough to cause significant damage to the heart muscle, the kind of event that kills people and that changes the physical reality of survivors permanently. He confirmed it happened as he was finishing a sermon, that he fell silent at the end of it, and that the medical situation was serious. He addressed the allegations directly. He said he absolutely denied them. He said he had not seen Dwayne Youngblood for 40 years. He described Youngblood's account as knowing false and said his legal team had assembled the evidence to demonstrate that. He addressed the broader cultural environment he was navigating, saying they were living in a time of misinformation and disinformation that was hard to live with. He said killing people's character had become a business. He said it felt like people were not interested in truth, that they enjoyed being angry and being drawn to whatever was salacious. When Craig Melvin asked whether he expected more accusers to come forward, Jakes' answer was honest in its uncertainty. He said he did not know where they were right now. He said from the looks of the previous year and how many black celebrities and people in general had been put through this kind of thing, he genuinely did not know. He said he thought there was a hopelessness and desperation at work, that desperate people do desperate things. He said he did not see this coming. The interview confirmed something that the months of silence had obscured, that whatever the full truth of the situation is, T.D. Jakes was genuinely shaken by it. Not merely inconvenienced or publicly embarrassed. Genuinely shaken in the way that a man who has spent nearly 50 years building something from scratch and watched it become one of the most significant religious institutions in the country is shaken when that institution suddenly becomes the most visible target in a cultural moment built around the exposure of powerful figures. After his statement regarding the allegations, what became of the lawsuit, and did the accusers have any strong evidence to plead their case? The lawsuit resolves and the ministry transitions. The legal battle concluded in October 2025, when attorneys for both Jakes and the Youngblood brothers jointly filed a notice of dismissal, ending the case by consent of all parties. No judgment was issued against either side, and the dismissal was mutual. Jakes' attorney, Dustin Push, issued a statement saying that the court had consistently ruled in Jakes' favor throughout the proceedings, that the established record had proven the utter falsity of the claims, and that in the interest of judicial efficiency and closure for all involved, Jakes had chosen to dismiss the remaining claims and focus his attention on continuing the global ministry and community work that had defined his life for nearly 5 decades. However, something is worth noting. During the proceedings, one of Youngblood's attorneys was assessed a $5,000 fine by the court for submitting AI-generated legal citations that did not exist, which the attorney explained by writing that AI was taking over the legal community and that he was not immune to errors that might arise from this new trend. In April 2025, Jakes announced that he was transitioning leadership of the Potter's House to his daughter, Sarah Jakes Roberts, and her husband, Touré Roberts. This announcement was immediately interpreted by some observers as a retreat under pressure. It is also possible to understand it as the decision of a 67-year-old man who had just survived a massive heart attack and who was looking at the operational demands of running one of the largest churches in America and concluding that a managed transition made more sense than continuing indefinitely. Sarah Jakes Roberts has built a ministry of her own through Woman Evolve that draws tens of thousands of attendees to annual conferences and reaches millions more through digital platforms. Handing the church to her and her husband is not the same as handing it to strangers. It is a family succession that the church's own culture supports. Jakes has continued to preach. He appeared at the Potter's House in July 2025. He has continued his conference work and speaking ministry. He remains one of the most widely recognized religious figures in America, for better or worse, shaped by a year that put every aspect of his public identity under scrutiny that he did not seek, and that the documented evidence suggests he did not deserve in its most extreme forms. The truth of what T.D. Jakes finally confirmed is this: he had a heart attack in November 2024 that was massive and genuinely life-threatening. He had been the target of sustained AI-generated misinformation that Snopes documented and his attorneys subpoenaed Google to address. He was separately accused by 2 brothers of sexual misconduct dating to the 1990s, allegations he denied completely with a 500-page legal response, and that a court dismissed by consent after consistently ruling in his favor. He sued his accuser, because he decided enough was enough, and he is transitioning his church to the next generation after a year that tested everything he built. Do you believe that the court's consistent rulings in Jakes' favor and the mutual dismissal of the lawsuit fully resolve the questions raised by the Youngblood allegations? Or do you think there are things about this situation that remain unanswered? And looking at the transition of the Potter's house to Sarah Jakes Roberts and to Ray Roberts, do you think T.D. Jakes stepped back because of the scandal, or because a 68-year-old man who survived a massive heart attack made a reasonable decision about his own limits? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.